It is time for Hadoop in a hurry. I'm Marcel-Jan. I'm going to talk about security and Hadoop. And this is an interesting topic because Hadoop wasn't created with a lot of security in mind, actually. At the beginning, it was just meant to be used by a couple of data scientists, maybe a data engineer. And you didn't need a lot of security for that. It was basically like, here is the data, come and get it. But the thing is, whenever you put a big ball of data, sorry for the analogy, somewhere in an organization, before you know it, other people want to dig in. And it's just first it's that other guy from the other department, then the whole department wants to dig in because they see some benefit from it, and why not? And then there's another department, and the marketing and sales and HR, and they also want to store their data as well. And then there's this other company that wants to join for some reason, and you have Hadoop as a service, and before you know it, you have to ask, who is that guy, and is he allowed to do that? That is one of the questions you have to ask. When thinking about securing Hadoop, let's first think about the data. Because the first question to ask is, how sensitive is this data actually? Is it open data we just pulled off the internet, which anybody could get? Then maybe you don't need a lot of security. But if there's personal identifiable data in there, you can get in more trouble if you don't properly secure it. So let's see a couple of things we can do. But first, those questions. So there's that guy. So who is that guy? And is he allowed to do that? Are, well, good questions to ask in case of security. Of course, proper manuals, documentation don't talk about who is that guy. They call it authentication and authorization. So these are the most important questions, I think, but there's more. Another good question is, what actually has happened on this system? It would be great to have some kind of auditing, accounting, or traceability in your system. And while most systems do have that, the question then is, who is going to read it? And the question often is, no one. No one is going to read that, and we find out that we had a breach months ago because we didn't read it, but it was actually there in the logs, but we didn't watch it. So all this data basically is unstructured data. So hey, don't we have a system for that? Yes, we do. We have Hadoop. And wouldn't it be great if we have some kind of machine learning analytics stuff we can do to find anything that is an anomaly in there? And that is also a possibility. We'll see that in a moment. And then we can find out anything that is freaky in this log, anything that's not usual user behavior in there. All right. Now, also, you have to remind yourself that this data is not somewhere in space. It's on actual hardware. You wouldn't believe it. Even if it's in the clouds, it's on hardware. So it might be possible that some people who don't have Hadoop accounts actually can get to the Hadoop files. Well, some people say to me, well, yeah, but these are binary files. It's very theoretical. Actually, it's not. With a Unix command like strings, it's pretty easy to read binary files and to see all the data that's in there. So you can imagine some kind of administrator or someone who got access to the system somehow, that this person might get access via another way. And it's especially interesting when you're dealing with a system in the clouds, because who are these guys and what can they do on your system? And then there's another thing, that this data, well, you want to make reports on that, you want to make fancy queries on that, you want to see some results, and this result comes over a network. And it is possible to use a network sniffer. Somebody might read along with you and get that sensitive data. So this is called encryption at rest and encryption in motion. One more thing about encryption in rest. The system you're working on has a finite lifetime. So one day it might end up in the trash. So it would be really great if it's already encrypted and you don't have to do much, except don't put the key to the encryption in there as well. That would not be a good idea. So there's that. Oh, and also encryption comes at a cost. It costs CPU cycles. So there's that. So there's gonna be trade-off. So what kind of products in Hadoop can we use to make it more secure? Well, there are a couple of them. Actually, there are quite a lot. There are the regular features in Hadoop that are already there, but they're not on by default, like encryption. There's Kerberos, which is an important one. There's Apache Knox, which is a gateway. I'll explain that in a moment. And there's Ranger and there's Atlas. And a bit of an oddball out in this story is Apache Metron, but might be interesting for you. So first let's look at Kerberos. Well, first let's look how a system works without Kerberos. So here we have an Hadoop system, and here's Alice, and she stores a file with secrets on the HDFS. And she does everything she can to secure it. She actually makes sure that the permissions on that file are as limited as possible. Only she can read it. By the way, chmod, it works pretty much the same way that it works on Unix. So chmod 600 means read and write for herself. Nobody in a group gets any permissions, and nobody else gets any permissions. So it's the best she can do if she's not an administrator and she cannot install anything. Now here comes Bob, and Bob is browsing around in the web interface. And Bob is clicking and sees, hey, there is that secrets file. I want to read it, is what Bob thinks. So he clicks, and Hadoop system says, yeah, well, pal, you're not Alice, so you don't have to write permissions. Denied. But Bob is not finished. Bob knows a trick. Bob knows that in this field he can add a parameter where he says, oh yeah, well, about that, I'm not actually Bob, I'm Alice. Yeah, sorry for the misunderstanding. And so he clicks on secrets, and now Hadoop says, oh, sorry Alice, here's your file. So that's the situation without Kerberos. Now here is the situation with Kerberos. So this is a very short and incomplete version of Kerberos, but here we have a Key Distribution Center, the KDC, and it is the authority on the system, or the authorita, as it's sometimes called. And here comes Bob, and Bob says, hi, I want to read that secrets file. And the KDC says, yeah, first, pal, let's see some authentication. There's that word again. So Bob has to give a username password combination, or probably. And the KDC says, well, that looks all right, you're Bob, but you're definitely not Alice, and you will not be able to read the secrets file of Alice. So it sounds like Kerberos is a pretty important deal when securing your Hadoop system. Next, let's look at Apache Knox, because it's a completely different deal here. This is a gateway. So the idea is here's a cluster of 6 nodes with all kinds of processes of all kinds of components running, and there are the kind of addresses where you can do things, or there are REST APIs and you want to run things against that. So the thing is, all these addresses point to the node where the process is running on. It's not really that user-friendly. Now, next we install Apache Knox. It's basically a different node, or running somewhere. And the user now connects to Apache Knox as a gateway, and Apache Knox will find the place where you want to go in the cluster. Which is also great, for example, when you have a failover or anything, the user can get there right away without knowing anything is. So probably a good experience for the user also. Another thing is that you can easily install a firewall between the user and Apache Knox, so that you don't have to define all these different servers and their different ports in your firewall, which makes it easier and therefore better maintainable. Next, there's Apache Ranger, and Apache Ranger basically works like this. Well, there are several things Apache Ranger can do for you. One thing is, here you have all these components, and without Ranger, they all do their own thing. They have their own links where you can do administration, for example, for security settings. They all have their kind of authentication. They all have their auditing files, and you all have to find them all on different places. And this is a bit of annoying, and it's one of the things that I've seen a video, you can find it on YouTube, from a hackers conference. I think it was in Budapest, and two guys said, well, these are the problems that the Hadoop system has. This is one of the things. All these components have their own way of doing things. Now, in comes Ranger, and you can basically plug in all these components. Well, not all of them. For example, one glaring omission is Spark. You can't find anything on Spark in there, but most of them have a plugin, and you can now see all the auditing, for example, in Ranger on one page. It's what they call a single pane of glass to see all these different security settings and auditing data. You can define policies in Ranger, and it's pretty easy to do. Then there's Apache Atlas, and Apache Atlas is pretty closely related to Apache Ranger. Apache Atlas is a metadata store. It's a data governance tool, and it works like this. So here we have a Hadoop cluster, and we have some stuff in there. So we have HDFS files and HDFS in different paths. We have different Hive databases with different tables, and we have a couple of tables in HBase, and we can now tag these. So you can say, for example, database A, that's finance. We put a tag on there, that's finance. Could be departments. You could also do data classifications, for example, sensitive, public, that kind of stuff. It's very versatile. Now we have a database B, we have just one table, and we tag that with sales, and we tag some other stuff. And now we can use Ranger. You create a group, add a bunch of users to it, create a policy in Apache Ranger that says this is what we're going to do with everything that's tagged with sales. We add the group sales to it, and now everybody in the group sales has access to everything that is tagged with sales. It's pretty neat. And then there's Apache Metron, and like I said, this is a different beast, because Apache, the products we've seen before, you install on your Hadoop cluster to secure your Hadoop cluster. But Apache Metron is a different thing. You wouldn't install it on your Hadoop cluster. It's basically something that runs on Hadoop and does things for your security. What you can do is you can add all kinds of security data like firewall logs, audit files from your Hadoop cluster, audit files from other systems, virus scanner data, network taps. It can even do network taps. You can add that all to Apache Metron, and Apache Metron has all these fancy algorithms that can pick out anything that is an anomaly, anything that is something that normal users wouldn't do, and therefore needs to be studied a little bit closer. And that can be hacks, those can be breaches. It would be it's a really great way to find out quickly if there's anything wrong going on your network at your organization. So there's that. So let's get back to these questions we asked before. Now, the question about how sensitive is your data, you have to ask yourself. Let's see if we can help answer these other questions. So who is that guy, and is he allowed to do that? Well, the authentication, there we really need Kerberos. There's no question about it. At the authorization side, well, Hadoop has some features like permissions, but Ranger is going to help you also out there. Together with Atlas, it's a pretty good team. Now, about accounting, auditing, traceability, well, here Hadoop has these features, but Ranger makes it a lot more user-friendly, a lot easier to see if there's anything crazy going on. But if you really want something that automatically picks out anomalies, there we would think about Apache Metron. And then encryption at rest and in motion. Yeah, basically Hadoop already is able to do that. You have to turn it on. It's not turned on by default. But Ranger also helps you out here. It's one feature I didn't discuss yet. It's the key management store. If you throw away the disk with the encrypted files on it, but you also put a key there, that is not a good idea. And Apache Ranger has a secure way to store those keys, and that is going to be less of a problem for you. And that is basically, I think, all there is to say in this high overview about Hadoop security. If you have any questions, if you're missing any information, let me know in the comments. I'm Marcel-Jan. I have a blog, I have a Twitter account, And if you need a data engineer, you might want to contact my employer, Open Circle Solutions. Thank you for watching, and until next time.